In this video, we're going to work with the tool Image Trace in Illustrator. So I have opened up a free clip art page that I can use for Image Trace. I can open it a couple different ways. I can go right to the JPEG, right-click it and open it with Illustrator, or I can have Illustrator open and go to File Open and find it and place it. If you notice here, what I brought in is much bigger than my artboard. My artboard I know is 8.5 by 11. So I could either scale up my artboard size or scale down my motifs. These are really big, so I would imagine that what I want to do is I want to scale this down so that way I don't have an image that is so big. I could work with it in Photoshop and resize it, or I could select it and scale it down to start with. I'm just changing the sizing. I'm not really scaling it. If I was actually using these images, I would want to make sure that the size was different once I put it into repeat. So we'll check the size afterwards, but for now, this will work with Image Trace. Here's my artboard. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, so depending on which system you're working on. I am on a Mac today, so Command plus zoomed me in. Now what I want to do is go into Object, Image Trace, Make, and Make and Expand. I'm going to do Make and Expand. And now we have all of my tracings of all of these different images. They're not images that I created, they're free clip art, so they are available to use. Now, one way that I can do this now, if I have my Direct Select tool on, I can select just one item. Now, one of the things that we did in the previous video was to save all of our color chips that we had specifically chosen. So I do want to use those for my artwork as I start to create my surface designs. So let's see what I can do. I can open my, depending on how you have your setup, okay, I am going to open my swatches. And if you remember from the previous video, we have to come in here to find the ones that we had saved. So I want to open Swatch Library, User Defined, and it's the Madison and Me color palette, and here we go. Now the other thing that we can do is we can set up a couple different artboards so we can work a little easier with what we have. So I'm going to come in here. In our layers, we have a little tab that is Artboards. This artboard here is the first one. I can go ahead and add a new artboard right next to it. I can move these over a little bit. So now what I can do is I can keep this as my working one and bring mine over here as I start creating a motif. Remember, the motif we're going to use in the development of the surface design pattern, and there are tools in Illustrator and Photoshop that we can use to kind of test out how our motifs might work in the intended pattern that we might choose. So I have this selected. I'm going to grab the whole thing. Control C, come over here, Control V. Now I want to make it so that it's one of my colors. While it's activated, I can choose to color it. Right now I have color, I have fill, and no stroke. I could change the stroke color to work with the colors that I've chosen. Let me click off this so you can see it. I'll zoom in a little bit. So I have my outline, my stroke in the color, and the fill in the color. And now let's see, maybe I want to put that onto this. So I only want this one, but I want to make sure I get the whole thing. And I did not get the whole thing. Let me try it again. Select this, make sure I get this. Copy, come over here, edit, and I'm still only getting part of it. Back in, activate just that one here. I'm going to group this. So now I should be able to get everything. Okay. So remember in class I told you that when we use that image trace, sometimes you have to do a little bit of work to the imagery before you can get the tracing to actually work. So what I did was I used the white arrow to select it, and then I actually used my black arrow to get the whole thing, but then I grouped it before I copied it. So here's my image. I actually think I want to make it a little bit bigger. So I can go ahead and do that. I want to change the color. I want to work with the colors that I have chosen. Actually, I want that as the fill color. And I don't want an outline on this. So you see how I have my two images. I can take this one and I can move it into this one to create kind of a combined motif. If I wanted this one to go behind, I can transform it, arrange it, send backward, and now I have my flower in front. And let me bring one more and I'll put it right in the middle, and then that's what we can use as the motif. So let's see, I think I'm going to go with this one. So again, my direct selection tool for this one I shouldn't have as much trouble with, but again, I could group it, edit, copy, come over here, edit, paste. Let me do it in a different color here. Again, I want it as the fill color, not necessarily the outline. Stroke, I'll do no. And I want to scale this down. Oops. If I hold my shift as I do it, it does it proportionally. And I can go ahead and put that right in here. Ungroup everything, but then I'm actually going to group it all together. Okay, so now I have my motif. When I start to use the the Illustrator pattern making tools, I might want to make my artboard a little bit bigger so that way I can see what will happen when I use them. So I'm going to stop the video here. This was creating a motif using image trace in Illustrator. I'm going to do another motif by using a photo, a scan of a photo that I brought into Illustrator, and using that as a layer, I'm going to use the pen tool to actually trace. So remember the two ways that we talked about was image trace or using your artwork as an inspiration to trace. So I'm going to stop this one here and move on to the next one.